Let me ask you this. The appointments that Trump has made are attracting a lot of attention, in particular Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think you had a funny tweet, if it can still be called tweet. I don't know what it's called in the age of Musk. You had a funny tweet on that talking about two people being tasked to run government efficiency. But really, the role of Musk in this administration, let's start there.
Well, Trump has recency bias. He spends a lot of time with people that he has gotten to know and impressed him in the most recent time. So very few appointments from his first administration, and yet he's spending enormous amount of time with Elon Musk. I mean, basically almost nonstop in the couple of weeks since the election. That does give Trump a lot of influence over the people that are being appointed in these positions. But that doesn't mean that that will be true in 3 months or in 6 months' time. I will say that Trump's and Vivek's appointments to run this non-governmental organization, it is not a cabinet, it is not a department, it has no power. It's going to be stood up for 18 months, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. Elon says that he can take $2 trillion out of the U.S. budget, create efficiency. That is not true. He can't do anything remotely close to that. Congress has no interest in allowing him to do that. Trump's own electoral promises, campaign promises, were all about spending more money and reducing tax burdens. So, and there's nobody in the House or Senate, with the exception of Rand Paul from Kentucky, who is really trying to bring down the deficit. So I think this is the announcement of Musk and Ramaswamy, red meat to the base, showing them I'm taking these two people you love and I'm giving them, important positions, but they will be able to accomplish virtually nothing in those roles. So the more interesting question about Musk is what kind of direct influence he will have outside of the political system. We saw, for example, that he was on the first Trump phone call as president with Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine. Musk, very important on Ukraine because he's providing Starlink, which has helped keep the Ukrainians in power, allow them to defend themselves and communicate. But of course, more recently, Musk has been parroting Russian disinformation and talking points on how to end the war, and has made fun of Zelensky publicly and undermined his position. So that could have a lot of influence in how the war ends. Musk, unlike Trump's national security appointments, who are overwhelmingly hawkish on China, Musk has a significant piece of his global wealth tied up in China, actively doing business in China, and is much more, I would say, complimentary of China than he is of the Ukrainians or even of the SEC in the United States. So, I mean, if Trump's first phone call with Xi Jinping includes Elon Musk, well, then I would probably have a more constructive view of what U.S.-China relations are likely to look like under a Trump administration. So those things, Barkha, I think are actually very interesting.
Well, I was just going to ask you that because your newsletter talks about the Trump administration being an administration of China hawks. But this isn't the first time that you're pointing out to the links between Elon Musk and China, Elon's wealth and projects linked to China. Isn't that a contradiction, or do you think it reinforces that Musk's influence might be more symbolic, more for the base than actual, or do we not know yet?
We don't know. We don't look. I mean, Trump has a desire to end the war in Ukraine as fast as possible, and he's appointed some people like Pete Hegseth for defense and Mike Waltz as national security advisor, who have been among the most hawkish in pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia sentiment and wanting to get them more military support, more economic support. Isn't that a contradiction? We don't know. And the reason we don't know is because we don't know how much attention Trump personally is going to spend on those policy issues at the high level and then in terms of detail. And if it turns out that he's not all that interested and it gets handed off to the officials that he has appointed in his cabinet, then Elon Musk is going to have very little influence on China. If, on the other hand, he's actually given a significant amount of attention to this personally, and is prepared to bring Elon in. Then, I mean, look, Elon does have a relationship with a number of high-level Chinese officials. He's traveled to China recently. He has held himself out there as the guy that can help smooth relations between China and Trump, so much so that when I was in Beijing, high-level officials were asking me, hey, do you think he can really do this? And what does it mean? And, should we count on him going forward? And the answer is that is a completely untested proposition. Barkha, I think there are two things that are interesting here on China specifically. One is that in Trump's first term, Trump did not have a technology policy. He wasn't interested in it. So he put tariffs on China. He was concerned about intellectual property. A lot of people, had a hard line on Taiwan. But on technology, it was Biden. It was the CHIPS Act came under Biden. It was the export controls on semiconductors came under Biden. Biosecure Act, Biden. So, I mean, are we going to see Trump continuing those policies? Or will Elon have a lot more influence over technology policy vis-a-vis China? We know that Jeff Yass, who's a major investor for TikTok and also a major contributor to the Trump campaign, managed to get Trump to flip, not to want to ban TikTok, but instead saying, no, I want to keep working with TikTok, which is, kind of funny for a guy that's got a hawkish administration on China. I mean, China owns TikTok, and aren't you concerned about them scooping up all of this data, on American kids? For example, well, apparently no. Well, Elon's given a lot more money to the Trump campaign than Jeff Yass. I mean, $125 million as opposed to like $2 million. So, I mean, historically, one thing you could always count on Trump is the fact that if you gave him a lot of money, he would do what you wanted, right? I mean, he is very deeply oriented towards money and business transactions. So, I mean, surely you have to believe that Elon's contributions, and which have included algorithmic contributions on Twitter, that those should be valued by the president-elect. And the question is whether that will be valued primarily at home in terms of, continued subsidies for SpaceX and things like that, or whether it will have a meaningful implication for international policy, like, for example, on China. Again, we don't have any answers to those questions at this point.
So Elon is quite literally and metaphorically the X factor.
I think that's right.